Morning.
Welcome to the international webinar series, Islamic Economics and Finance Solution on COVID-19 Pandemic Crisis, which presented by National Committee for Islamic Economic and Finance and Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists and Medan Area University. This is the first series brought to you with the topic of COVID-19 outbreak, impact and assessment for the Islamic finance in the OIC countries. With objective to explore the impact of COVID-19 outbreak and assess how far this COVID-19 affect Islamic finance in the OIC countries. And then to elaborate solution offered by Islamic finance to minimize financial and economic impact of COVID-19 in the OIC countries. With us, our awesome speakers, Professor Datuk Dr. Ahmad Kamil Maidin Mira from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and also Dr. Ugi Suharto from University of Buraimi, Sultanate of Oman. Then we also later on, we have our prominent guests. There are three here. Number one, Professor Humayun Dar, Director General, Cambridge Institute of Islamic Finance, United Kingdom. And then Mr. Blake Gott, CEO of RFI, Responsible Finance and Investment Foundation from United States. And also we have Dr. Nail Muhammad, Associate Professor, Kwame Nkrumah, University of Science and Technology from Ghana. Just to remind the participant that you can text the question in the show conversation feature. Then we will select the relevant one. And then participant also must unmute the microphone during the event unless requested to talk. And then also participant must deactivate the video sign. This is to make sure that our program, our event can be done smoothly. For your information, this seminar will take 1.5 hours. It consists 45 minutes, a panel discussion with 2 speakers, and then we'll continue 15 minutes will be the comment and suggestion from our prominent guests. And then followed by 30 minutes will be the Q&A for the participant. Let's open this event by citing Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me read the short bio of the speakers for the information for the participant. Number one is Professor Datuk Dr. Ahmad Kamil Maidin Mira. He is adjunct professor in the Faculty of Economics and Management Science, International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. He holds a PhD degree in finance from University of North Texas, Denton, USA. His undergraduate and master's degree were in area of economics from IIUM. His areas of interest and expertise include financial market, investment analysis, macroeconomics, economics of social issues, and quantitative methods. He has wide experience in teaching, training, consultancy, and research in the above areas. His work have been published in local and international journals. His current research interest is in money systems that includes the gold dinar. He is the author of the books, The Islamic Gold Dinar and The Debt of Nation. Then our second speaker, Dr. Ugi Suharto, is currently with University of Buraimi in Oman. Obtained his PhD in year 2000 from International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM, in Islamic Civilization, majoring in Islamic Economics. His Bachelor of Economics and Master of Economics, also from IIUM. Up to date, Dr. Ugi has more than 2 decade experience in the academic field. Spent 7 years as research fellow at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC, and then 5 years as assistant professor in the Kuliah of Economics and Management Science, IIUM, then 2 years as associate professor in the University College of Bahrain, and serving as the director of the Islamic Finance Program, then 1 year lecturing and managing in postgraduate Markfield Institute of Higher Education in the United Kingdom. An additional 3 and 5 years as associate professor in Ahliya University in Bahrain. And finally, 2 years with Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, or BIBF. Dr. Ugi's research interests include Islamic economics and finance, fiqh al-muamalah, Islamic thought and civilization, and the hadith studies. He has published more than 30 articles in Islamic studies and Islamic economics in various publications and academic journals in Indonesia, Malaysia, Bahrain, United Kingdom, and Turkey. Okay, now we go to the our main agenda, which is discussion from the speakers. But before that, let me introduce you about this topic. We are all concerned about this topic. This COVID-19 outbreak brought many impacts of economics, financial, social, or has multi-dimension effect. Billions of dollars have spent by many countries, and there are restrictions that had been enforced by many governments in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. There are many discussions had been held to explore and find the solution on the impact of COVID-19, but not on the impact toward Islamic economics and finance. We know that before the COVID-19 outbreak, the Islamic economics and finance grow positively. But now, during or after the COVID-19 outbreak, what will happen to the Islamic finance and bank institution? That is what we meant we are here. We will discuss on the impact on the Islamic finance toward, because of the COVID-19. Let's open this event by opening remarks by Dr. Sultan Amir Hidayat, Director of Education and Research, National Committee for Islamic Economics and Finance. The floor is yours, Dr. Sultan.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad Rafiki. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. I was supposed to have presentation slides, but because we started a bit late, so I decided not to use it, so to give more time for the speakers to present their insight, and we also have prominent discussions here that can share also their thoughts later on. So on behalf of the management of National Committee of Islamic Economy and Finance, or in Indonesia known as Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah, which has the short form of CONNECT, which aims actually to connect people, to coordinate people, and to create synergies among Islamic economic and financial stakeholders. And Alhamdulillah, today, through our collaborative efforts, we managed to hold this international webinar thank you very much to our strategic partners. The first one, the Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists, which is in Indonesia known as IAEI, Ahli Ekonomi Islam, and also Universitas Medan Area that already collaborate with us very well in holding and conducting the seminar. My sincere appreciation is also for our prominent speakers, my teachers, Professor Datu Ahmad Kamil Maidin Mira, and also Dr. Ugi Suharto. It is very great opportunity for us here to be with them. Despite their tight schedule, we will, inshallah, we will be able to get the knowledge and depth insight from them about the issue. And also, we are also very thankful to many participants. Some of them even come from far away, and still they are still joining us today. Let me call Professor Humayandar, who is currently in the UK at 5 a.m. in the morning. We have also Dr. Ahmad Nail, who is currently in Ghana, also at the, I think same time, at around 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. I'm not sure. And we have also from the US, I think around 9 p.m. Today over there, according to his information. And we have also some other participants from Turkey, Dr. Umar Bati, and then from other parts of the world, whom I cannot mention one by one. But I hope this seminar can unite us as a Muslim and to come out with universal solution, universal ideas to combat this pandemic. I wish you a fruitful discussion during the webinar. And with this, I open the seminar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sultan, for your speech. So now we will go for our discussion. But before that, I want to make sure that Dr. Ugi is here.
Yes, Dr. Rafiki. Assalamualaikum.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, Dr. Ugi. But now I will start first with Professor Dato Dr. Ahmad Kamil Maidin Mira. So actually we have prepared for you 4 questions.
Okay.
Four questions, and this is related to the impact of Islamic banking and finance. So I will start with the question number 1.
Yes.
Professor Dato, actually, how will COVID-19 affect the growth of current Islamic banking and finance? In your opinion, Dato, please.
Thank you, Dr. Rafiki. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa ajma'in. Baraka la ilma illa anta innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Dr. Rafiki, Dr. Sultan Amir, and also my fellow speaker, Dr. Ugi, and also our respected discussants, Dr. Humayun, Mr. Blackguard, and Dr. Nail, and also all the participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
To see how the COVID-19 will affect the banking system. You know, this year, 2020, even finance people were actually expecting a recession to come from the financial sector. Just like in a few years before, in 2008 and even before that, yeah. This financial sector is normally a bubble, burst of a bubble. Huh? You know, like the dot-com bubble, a property market bubble. Some bubble will burst, and then the dynamics of a recession all will be setting. Yeah. But interestingly, this year, the COVID came and started a crisis from the real sector. So how it is a real sector? Once the disease started to spread, what happened is that first the governments go and do this lockdown, in order to the social distancing, in order to solve this problem. So once you do lockdown, then it will affect the supply, the aggregate supply in the economy. So if you know economics, then the supply curve will shift to the left, yeah. And at the same time, when people are unable to go to work, what happens? Your income also gets affected. So there's also a demand shift take place. Your demand curve also moves to the left. So therefore, the economy finds a new equilibrium at a lower output in the economy. Yeah? The price level depends on the size of the force shift, the relative shift between the demand and the supply. So what will be the effect on the economy is that first is there's a shrink in liquidity. That means there's no the movement of money. It actually goes down in the economy. Yeah? First is the shift in the liquidity is affected. When businesses are not able to continue, then there'll be also what do you call that? You can expect defaults on loan to take place, which means the first effect that the banking system, which is both the conventional and the Islamic banks, yeah, the first thing they will face in the very soon is basically default on financing. Conventional defaults on the loan, Islamic financing, they also get, financing problems. So that will further shrink the liquidity in the economy. Yeah. So all in all, what you are seeing is a double recession. I call it double because it's coming from both the financial and the real sector, and that will disrupt many things. One is the supply chain. For example, notice the entire supply chain, the transportation, all affected. The import exports are also affected. And people are not going to make new investments when there's no demand. So the investments also will go down in the economy. And people's consumption also goes down, particularly on durables and so on. Yeah. So people are not going to go for financing of cars, or houses at this moment. Yeah. So a lot of things are going to be affected, and this is how the initial impact on the Islamic banking and finance will be leading. Yeah. So a liquidity crisis followed by a credit crunch will be the main impact on the economy. Yeah. So
Okay, Doctor.
yeah.
Okay, Professor. That is a very deep explanation, including you teach us on the economics, aggregate demand and supply.
Yeah.
And maybe we can continue the second question, Prof. Can Islamic banking and finance survive in this crisis and be expected to flourish post COVID-19? What is your opinion, Prof?
Okay. All right. The whether the Islamic banking and finance can survive this crisis. To be frank with you, all banking sectors, they will actually survive the crisis. They will. Why? Why they will survive? The first thing is, if you notice, the financing sector, let's take the conventional, yeah? The conventional is basically is interest rate. And we call interest the risk-free rate. In finance, we call it risk-free rate.
Okay.
So when is the risk-free rate? For example, if it's a crisis like this, will the banking sector will waive the interest or not? They're not going to waive the interest. They can postpone, like they give a moratorium to postpone the payments and so on, but interest will still grow, right?
Okay.
And also for Islamic finance, the problem was convergence. It has actually the previous, operating under the same environment, monetary environment. So that has caused the Islamic finance to also converge in the sense that most of the financing in the Islamic finance is also debt-based. Even though, it's not charging interest, but it's debt-based, yeah? So,
Okay,
murabaha,
yes.
whatever, right? So, the equity base is very small. So when the activity base is small, so the implications are going to be the same, you know. That means people still got to pay back, because when you buy something on Murabaha basis, you're paying back the price of the item or whatever. So you got to pay back, yeah, isn't it? So
Yes.
the banks will face a problem in receiving the thing, okay? So that's how initially it will affect the banking sector. But the real risk is still not there, in the sense that the customers or clients of the bank are still liable to pay back whatever financing taken, right? So in that sense, you know, the banking sector will actually will survive for this crisis. But the liquidity is the problem. The government must pump in back, must inject back the liquidity loss. That's why the stimulus packages are very important, right? In order to, but in the banking, in the books of the bank, what you will see is paper losses. People cannot pay. People defaulting on the loans and things like that. You will see paper losses. Yeah. So when paper losses take place, then you'll not be able to fulfill, let's say, some of the banking conditions. When they're not able to this thing, then some kind of mergers might take place. Most of the time after crisis, banking mergers will take place. But people need not worry whether the banking system will be completely closed or not. No. But what the real sector will lose is that they will be forced to give up, let's say, collaterals. Anything placed as collateral for loans or for financing, the banking sector will go for it. If you're unable to pay your, mortgages, then your properties might get foreclosed. So real properties will transfer. So the crisis will, what it will do is that it will move a lot of real assets into the ownership of the banking sector, but there will be paper losses that will create mergers, but banking system overall will actually survive the crisis because it's a transfer of wealth. So you see, sorry to say, what the statement, it is what I will say is that this crisis, which is coming from the financial sector and simultaneously from the real sector, is going to create the greatest wealth transfer in the history of mankind. It's going to transfer. It's going to be, yes. That's because it's coming from both, and it's global in nature. You see, if in the previous, if I say, let's say it's a recession in America or Malaysia or Indonesia, normally it will be something regional a bit, But this one, the entire world is affected by this COVID-19. It's going to be very, very different. The effects are going to be very different. But overall, to answer your question, yes, the IBF and also the banking system will survive this crisis. Yeah. I wonder whether I answered your question.
And then, Prof, can be expected to flourish post COVID-19? If can survive, then what will happen? What is the prospect? Yeah.
Well, the prospect is it is there, but then the banking system must, in my opinion, the banking system, the Islamic finance, because it can survive. Once it survives, what will be the effect? You observe and try to imagine. Those who have taken financing before, the SMEs, the individuals, they may face problem, but then you have already taken some of the collaterals and also you have taken the the foreclosed items. But if you want to give new financing to them, what will be the situation? You see, so the banking system will have to, especially Islamic finance, it needs to evolve a bit. I would say it has evolved in to take a position of more like fund managers. You need to now mobilize the existing funds, existing money from the surplus units in the economy, the actual funds, then mobilize it towards the deficit unit. You play that role, the actual role. You should not be playing the role like money creating, like what they've been doing all this while. Right? So you need to adjust yourself to position yourself in the current system of a great change. It's going to be a tectonic change. A shift going to take place for all of us, to the banking sector and also the real sector. So the financial sector needs to put themselves in that position. Okay, that is first. That means it is a chance to move from debt-based financing towards more risk-sharing type of modes of financing. So the Islamic finance was to move in that direction. Yeah. So that is the but yes, it can flourish, but you need to adjust yourself to the new environment that's going to come.
Okay, okay, Prof. Thank you for your explanation.
Yeah.
So then we have the question number 3. Actually, Prof, what aspect of Islamic finance?
What if you ask Prof. Ugi some questions, then I'll come to mine.
Okay.
You want to finish with mine first? No problem.
Yeah, I think we focus to you first, then
okay.
we move to Dr. Ugi questions. And question number 3, Prof. What actually the aspect of Islamic finance do you foresee will become popular post COVID-19 in terms of product or what?
Yes. Pretty good question. What aspects of Islamic banking finance will become popular or more used in today? Okay, so on the banking side, I've already mentioned that they'll have to move towards more risk-sharing financing. You see, one of the things, if you notice, even SMEs, they employ in Malaysia more than about 70% of the labor force, right? But they want a risk sharing mode of financing because they take a lot of risk. So in the present mode, if you go like the conventional financing or the present Islamic financing that is more debt based, then they can't. For them to get out of this crisis is going to be a tough job for them. So while the banking sector should move into risk sharing financing, what is happening? Even if you notice, a lot of individuals, Muslims and others, they themselves are moving towards on their own towards risk-sharing financing using fintech. So the banking system must embrace that. Otherwise, you will be left out. To give you an example, recently, if you have heard about, retail is becoming popular among Muslims. Retail. If you notice, like in southern Thailand, they started the ASEAN Mall. In Malaysia, in Cyberjaya, just opened just before the COVID lockdown, they launched the Malacca Mall. So these malls are actually financed like the ASEAN Mall is a wakaf based. So wakaf based, and then you use crowdfunding in order to get mobilize existing funds. You don't create new money. You use the crowdfunding mechanism to mobilize funds. Use wakaf methods, and you empower small businesses, small traders, all come into the mall. So they have large retailers, small business traders, even have like say, hall for wedding halls and conference halls, It's going to be like this. People are going to invest like this. So it's going to be more like peer-to-peer financing, or like what we say, the peer or people help people. In Malaysia, Indonesia, we say rakyat tolong rakyat, or rakyat bantu rakyat kind of financing is going to be popular. Yeah. So the banking system must see that. So this is the dynamics and grab that kind of opportunity. Yeah. So what I see is that peer-to-peer financing, crowdfunding, wakaf-based financing, microfinancing, these will become popular. Then using platforms like this, electronic platforms, then people will go for equity, more for equity financing so that it's sharing. Then they'll go for mobilization of sadaqah, mobilization of zakat, and so on. To give you an example, I was recently, we were trying to collect some funds for an orphanage to build a science lab. We needed about 60,000 ringgit. Just launched a simple crowdfunding for it. Within 2 months, you got the entire thing. Then the lab is established. In those days, it became difficult. You want to mobilize 60,000 ringgit to build a lab and so on. But crowdfunding, fantastic. Okay? So these are the methods that will become popular, and Islamic finance, we must use that. We need to go into crowdfunding techniques. We need to move towards more like a service-based, for example, international trade. Counter trades have become popular. Counter trades, therefore, facilitating counter trades. So Islamic finance must move in that direction, more like a service-based income, and then you take actual positions in equity financing. That means you will have to bear a bit of risk, share the risk, and you will in finance. When you share a higher risk, you also get a higher return. But you have to share the risk, And this is the kind of direction they have to go, which is basically like fund managers. Fund managers, they mobilize funds, they invest in equity-based financing and so on. But here they will invest in real businesses. So this is the direction Islamic finance should take in our view. Yeah.
Okay, Prof. Means that the crowdfunding is very important. That will become popular
Yes.
product or aspect after or post COVID-19.
Yes, correct. And the banking sector must embrace that, and they should move into application of not only sadaqah, zakat, wakaf, and so on, but using
Okay.
this.
And also include microfinance, Prof. Yeah.
Oh, yes, microfinance.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Prof. Then maybe this is our last questions, but a little bit long, So maybe and maybe the explanation also quite long. We actually related to Islamic finance. What capital investment can be postponed until the situation improves? And then what capital investment should be reconsidered? And then what capital investment required to position for the rebound and for creating competitive advantage? So this is, I think, regarding also related to economic development and also state-owned enterprise or government-linked companies and private firms. So please, Prof, maybe you have your opinion.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, as you mentioned, this one needs a bit elaboration. One is, we need the participation of the government. Basically, government intervention is necessary to solve the problem. Yeah. The government intervention is necessary, and then at the same time, the private sector. Yeah. So imagine what is happening. People are losing their job. A lot of businesses will close down, right? And once the lockdown is lifted, once the COVID is solved, some of the businesses will not be able to come back again. They will be closed down forever. So you will actually lose some of the economic activities will be permanently lost. Yeah. So many of these people will be unemployed still. Those who are used to work in that kind of industries, they'll be unemployed. So a lot of small businesses will crop up. They will mushroom. Small businesses will start to mushroom. So you have to imagine the situation like that. Okay, this is going to happen. So what the government, what the banking sector should do to revive back the economy. Yeah? So the first thing is actually the government must pump in money. What they should do? They need to help the households that are actually having no income first, or having devastated by this crisis. We need to give them some money to go on with life first. So that's why all kinds of assistance were given by the government. And for the SMEs, we need to also support them. It's very important to make sure you don't let SMEs fail, because they employ 70% of your labor force. So you need to pump in, particularly to help with the working capital financing. You need to pump in a lot of money. If you ask me how much the government should spend, if you close down like in Malaysia about 40 days, it's more than 10% of the year already, 40 days. So about 10%, actually it will be more. 10% of the economy will be lost, the GDP. So you need to pump in as that amount, 10% of the GDP. So in Malaysia's case, the GDP is about about 1.4 trillion ringgit. So which means about 150 billion should be pumping. When we say pumping means new money must come in, not the moratoriums or you are allowed to take withdraw money from the ETF fund. That's another thing. Yeah. So Malaysian government pumped in about 22 billion. New fiscal injection is 22 billion. So instead of 22, it needs to be increased to about 150 billion. We really want to solve this crisis in our country. Yeah. So where do we pump in? Yes, of course you need to use the money to give some for the households, but most of the money should go to the SMEs. Yeah. So you need to decide which SMEs that we need to save first. Yeah. So which SMEs they should use the large scale like construction going on in the country, like the MRT, LRT, lines and all those. The large scale construction should go on. The investment must go on, so that the spillover effect will be there, so that it will keep a lot of industries moving after this. Yeah. So large scale industries must be there, and then and the banking sector should come in, and they should see what the public and the government will see as important investment. Healthcare is going to be an important investment. You notice COVID, the actual problem of the COVID-19, it's actually what is the problem? It's actually the capacity in the hospital. If our hospitals had the capacity, then you will not see the problem. So when these people come, because of the speed in it and the incubation period of the virus is long, so you find people falling sick at the same time. And when they all go to the hospital, you find there's not enough beds, there's not enough ICU beds, there's not enough ventilators and so on. So in the future, a lot of investments will have to be made in the healthcare industry. You need to be ready. Yeah, the healthcare industry, the large, the scale of that, and also items of personal hygiene. You need to increase in the investment of that. What is personal hygiene? For example, even the production of masks. You see, there's not enough masks in the system, forcing people all to get sick easily. So countries like Sweden, they started, families started sewing their own masks, homemade masks and so on. So we need to make sure in the next, such a crisis can happen again. So therefore, we must be ready with all these things. So investment in these things will become necessary: personal hygiene and medical equipment and industry, yeah, like sanitizers and so on, yeah. But one more thing we need to be prepared is that we need to understand this crisis, COVID, might have been actually, we do not know, yeah, we do not know whether it is created in the lab or is it natural. We do not know. But as a government, we need to take both sides, or maybe this, yes, maybe that. If it is created in a lab, then it can happen again. It can happen again and again. So if the solution is vaccine, are you going to inject, vaccine into everybody's, every time a new virus comes, call everybody and keep injecting a vaccine? No. What we need to do is that we need to find what is the natural defense of viruses. The natural defense of viruses is actually our own immune system. Even when someone injects a vaccine, the solution is actually is your own immune system. That's what will solve the problem, not the vaccine. So we need to find traditional medicines that can actually improve, the immune system. We need to invest in that. I think the Jammu and all this in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Malaysia we have the Malay traditional medicines, Chinese traditional medicines, the Indian Ayurvedic traditional medicines. We need to give some, importance to this, and all these medicines should be studied relative to the existing conventional mainstream medicine. Yeah, we need to study using modern medicine relative to study those using relative to the modern medicine. So that's one thing we need to do that. Yeah, invest in those. And you see, one thing will come out is that after the crisis, is that a lot of people will start to do online businesses. Those who are unemployed, those who are actually even now sitting home, many of them are able to still do online businesses. You will see the positiveness in these online businesses will become popular. So IT-based businesses, online, e-based education, e-based things, including even artificial intelligence, robotics. All this will become a popular area to invest in after the COVID-19. So these are the sites that the banking sector should see. Okay, I should invest. I should provide investment to these sectors, these new innovative sectors and so on. Yeah. And areas that we should move away of investments are basically, like things like, we do not want to invest too much in oil and gas nowadays. Yes, when the economy recovers, then the oil and gas might recover a bit. But I think we'll be moving more towards green energy, for example, solar, wind, and things like that. But oil and gas will be suppressed, in my opinion, for a long time to come. Yeah. But mostly of the other these things, even though they are stuck, for example, automobiles and businesses in durables, all these will be kind of affected at least for a year or two. It's not going to come out easily in our opinion. So
Okay,
that is maybe if there's question and answers, maybe I will answer you.
Okay, Prof. Thank you. Thank you very much for the insightful explanation, Prof.
Thank you.
Also, I just want to remind the participant that they must unmute the speakers to avoid any noise or any things to disturb the conversation. So now let's move to our second panelist, our second speaker, Dr. Ugi Suharto from University of Buraimi, Oman. Dr. Ugi.
Yes, Dr. Rafiki, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, good. Alhamdulillah, good. Ustaz. We are here, have question for you, Dr. Ugi, that you can give your opinion related to the impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance and economics. Maybe you have your answer. Our question is actually how COVID-19 impact the Islamic financial structure in OIC countries. You can give example of some countries, or you also can give a little bit a brief on OIC countries. Actually, what is OIC countries? Please, Dr. Ugi.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Rafiki, for my time. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for having this webinar this morning, Dr. Amir, especially from KEIAS, and our colleague also, Professor Kamil, and our colleagues all over the world, like Professor Umayundar in UK, and everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, regarding OIC, we know OIC is standing for Organization of Islamic Cooperations, which was named before Organization of Islamic Conference, now of course Islamic Cooperation, which was established in 1969, and now having 57 states. Of course, these OIC countries are mostly in Asia and Africa, and we have only one in Eastern Europe, which is Albania, and two in South America, which are Guyana and Suriname. And none, of course, the OIC member countries in the South America like USA, Canada, and none in the Western Europe. All right. So although we have this organization of Islamic countries, normally when we say Muslim world or Muslim countries, these are represented by the Middle East countries. But however, of course, we know that not only in the Middle East. In fact, in the Middle East, we have even a smaller group of those countries which we call the GCC, the so-called the rich countries of the OIC. Now, if you look at the income per capita of OIC countries, they are very diverse. Very diverse. Yeah, if you look at, for example, the GCC, these are the most rich countries of among the Islamic countries. Qatar, for example, has about 69,000 US dollar per capita income. Okay, with Oman, for example, the least one among the five, 17,000. Yeah, but all over the GCC, we have Brunei, for example, 27,000 US dollar per capita income. Malaysia, 11,000. Turkey, 8,000. And we are Indonesia, for example, we have income per capita for 4,000 US dollar. But we have among these countries even the least, like Yemen, for example, only enjoying about less than 1,000 US dollar. So you can see here there are so diverse in terms of the income per capita among the GCC countries themselves. And by the way, we should differentiate between rich countries or rich income countries and developed countries. And none of the OIC countries belong to the developed countries. The GCC countries even still considered as developing countries, not yet developed. Yeah. So this is basically the issue. Now, the issue of development, of course, is related to what we call the Human Development Index, okay, developed by the United Nations. Yeah. So what we call it, Yemen, for example, is only having 0.45 in terms of the development index. So the higher of the development index, closer to 1, is basically the most developed one. Our country, Indonesia, is belonging to the middle, yeah, or to the high development, but it's close to the middle. Our human development index is basically only 0.707, okay, which is already in the high human development index, but close to the middle development index. Now, about the impact of this COVID-19 on the OIC countries, we can cluster these OIC countries into 3 different geographical areas. First is the cluster of what we call Southeast Asia cluster, yeah, which belongs to Indonesia and Malaysia. And then we have Middle East cluster, yeah, especially the GCC countries, and the third one, the rest of the Islamic world cluster, yeah, including Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Balkan, and African countries. Yeah, although each countries belong to the same cluster, but the Islamic financial structure of each country is diverse. For example, just to give you an example, the difference, what we call a structure of Islamic banking and finance in these OIC countries. Dubai Islamic Bank, for example, which is located in GCC, was established in 1975. In fact, this is the first Islamic bank in the world. But Oman, yeah, which is also part of the GCC, yeah, only adopting Islamic bank in 2013. You see, the difference is almost 4 decades between Dubai Islamic Bank in Dubai and the Bank Nizwa in Oman, which is the first bank, the first Islamic bank, okay, in Oman. You see, although Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates, and Oman are basically neighbor, you can see even in terms of the adoption of the Islamic financial system and the banking system has different, different attitude, different structure, almost 4 decade difference. Now another example, Malaysia, Indonesia, for example, in terms of the fiqh ruling, yeah, this is part of the structure of Islamic banking, of course. Yeah, Malaysia, for example, wants Allah bai'ul-ina for its financial product, and this is basically the secret behind the development and the flourishing of Islamic banking and finance is Malaysia. So bai'ul-ina was the major instrument, but Indonesia, which is just neighbor to Malaysia, didn't allow this transaction or this instrument. So you can see the different structure. And another different structure probably, yeah, which is feasible is in their jurisdiction, okay, in the legal environment and the state of economic development, yeah, and also the government approach, okay, toward the Islamic banking and finance. Probably we can cite like Bahrain, Malaysia, or to certain extent Indonesia. The governments are really taking care of the development of Islamic banking and finance, these will have different structure and impact. Now, because of the diverse financial structure of the Islamic finance among the OIC countries, the impact also would be different at the moment. Of course, at the moment we are still assessing the long-term impact, because this disease is still unfolding. Okay, it's still recurring, so we are still assessing the long-term impact of the COVID-19. But the immediate impact, surely, we can predict very much. As already touched by Professor Kamil just now. Of course, every country will experience recession and fiscal deficit. Now, how the Islamic finance can help to deal with the issue? Now, this is very, very big questions. Okay. Now, of course, some of Islamic finance in GCC are in fact experiencing double issue. You see, especially in GCC. Number one, of course, the COVID-19, and number two is the drop of the oil price. So our GCC countries are basically not only having a problem with the COVID-19, but also about the problem with the drop of the oil, drop of the price of the oil. Now, when we assess the situation, it seems that there is no cooperation yet to be heard among the OIC countries to help each other in this situation. Okay, everybody and each country has its own agenda to deal with its internal problem. In fact, we can also observe that there are more on the debt rising activities to come out to solve this fiscal deficit. Now we can see, for example, Qatar had issued $10 billion Eurobond recently. And this probably will be followed by other GCC countries. You see, Indonesia had issued $4.3 billion bond with some maturity of 50 years. Probably this is the longest bond ever created in Indonesia. And Indonesia also has a plan to issue more than $27 billion external bond to deal with the COVID-19. Okay, now those countries can issue bond, but some of the countries are not able to issue bond because of their credit rating and because of their cost. Those countries cannot resort to the external bond. They go to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for financial aid. Pakistan had done, Jordan also had done, and Iran also, for example, had done. And in the case of Iran, for example, even there is an attempt from the US administration to block the application of financial aid from the IMF. Now, according to IMF, up to now, there are already 88 countries applying for the financial aid. So these are basically some of the impact, the immediate impact, the immediate impact of the COVID-19 among the OIC countries. Yes, Dr. Rafiki.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ogi, for the view that very, very wide, and we can understand all about the OIC countries. Now we go to the next questions. Dr. Ogi, how Islamic finance affect the economic growth of the country in this mid-COVID-19 outbreak? And together also, you can explain, or maybe you have opinion on how to help the SMEs, because the SMEs are affected too much with COVID-19. So what are the view of Islamic economics and finance to help them? So this is two questions I just combined into one because it is related. So the time is yours, Dr. Rugi. Please.
All right. Thank you very much. This is very challenging question, to me. No, of course. You see, from what we just explained just now, some of the Muslim countries resort, to issuing bond or borrowing from the IMF, for example, right? Now, what type of borrowing are all of these? Of course, these are conventional borrowing, right? Raising bond or financial aid. These are the conventional borrowing. They are not using Islamic financial instrument, of course. Yeah, but of course this is also understandable. Okay, during the crisis like this, during the darurah like this. Okay, and some scholars would say, well, ad-darurah tubihul mahdurat. Okay, because we are in the darurah, then what is originally prohibited might be, it might not be prohibited at the moment. Well, okay, we will not what we call it. We are not debating, okay, the issue. But since we are talking about the Islamic finance now, yeah, it seems that the role of Islamic finance is still minimum, yeah, at this situation. I hope that in the future there will be more cooperation among Muslim countries and more utilization of Islamic financial instruments. Now, of course, you see the effect of this COVID is tremendous. As we say that every country will experience in the short run recession, okay, if not depression. But even some of the world economists have already predicted that it may lead into depression, even probably worse, yeah, depressions, yeah, because yeah, we have not what we call it experienced, okay, the Great Depression or the World Depression since 1929, yeah. Probably it will recur, and we are now approaching also 100 years, yeah, after the what we call it the last Great Depressions. Yeah. Now, of course, with this COVID-19, the policy, the common policy adopted by countries, basically by doing quarantine, lockdown. Okay, in some countries, this will affect surely the productivity, the supply chains will be interrupted, unemployment will increase, yeah, and makes the reduction of the poverty even harder. Yeah, even the level of poverty will increase, yeah, tremendously. Yeah. Now, for example, yeah, Indonesia has already revised its growth projection even to negative growth. Yeah, in the worst scenario, you see, our Ministry of Finance has already, yeah, revised, okay, the growth from 5% to 2%, yeah, or even, yeah, minus, yeah, what we call it, below 0%. This is the scenario that we'll be facing probably. Oman, for example, yeah, has slashed the government budget by 5%, okay, to deal with the COVID-19, yeah. And survey in Malaysia, for example, has indicated that probably 70% of small and medium enterprise, okay, will lose half of their income. So in short, we will be having recessions. So recession will be is very sure. Okay, recession is very sure because of the productivity problem, of the unemployment, supply chains. Recession is sure, but yeah, we will probably face a depression. Okay, beside the recessions. Now, of course, the SME will be affected very much. Yeah, in this short term. Yeah, the SME will be affected very much. Now, how can Islamic finance help the SME, for example? Of course, we can discuss further. Yeah, but I just want to what we call it to give one issue here to be considered. Yeah. Now, we in Indonesia, for example, have a very good institution of Islamic microfinance. All right, we call it Baitul Mal wa Tamwil, or BMT. Yeah. Now, of course, this is also the strength of Islamic finance in Indonesia. It is basically in microfinance. Yeah. Now, perhaps, okay, one aspect of this microfinance needs to be improved, yeah, from the institution, especially in the relationship with the community. You see, in the West, yeah, in the West, we have what we call the concept of community bank. So what is community bank? It is a bank, yeah, which cater, okay, for their neighborhood, okay, for their community. So it is a small bank. It's not too big bank, but they are catering the development of their neighborhood. That's why what's the principle of bank community is neighbor helping neighbor. You see, so this is now the concept of community bank can be turned into what we call community BMT. Yeah, so the community BMT, yeah, should give a business, should give a core business to this community. Okay, so why BMT? not just give focus on the business around them or in the community around them. So I think probably this is the best time, okay, to think about the role of the Baitul Mal wa Tamwil to give more focus on their community. So this is just one aspect. Thank you very much. Hello.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Ogi. I just want to remind the participant that they must deactivate the video and also unmute the speakers. You have finished with the question, with the answer, Dr. Ogi?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then maybe we have the final question here. It is related to the fiscal policies. What actually the instrument in Islamic economy related to fiscal policies that can help the government of, especially government of OIC countries? Please, Dr. Ogi.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Rafiki. Okay, so in this health crisis involving life and death of the people, you see many governments in the world resort to what we call the government transfer or government or transfer payment in the public finance. So this is part of the public policy. For example, in the United States, okay, United is issuing 2 trillion. Yeah, although not all in the government transfer, but some of them in the government transfer. So the transfer payment or government transfer is basically a kind of redistribution income and wealth by means of the government making a payment, okay, to people without goods and services being received in return. So it is just like government giving goods and services and money, okay, for free, okay, to the people. Okay, this is what we call the government transfer. Now, in Islamic economics, we have a built-in mechanism of transfer payment. Okay, we call it zakat. So zakat is a special institution of public finance. All right, especially with the mechanism of what we call the transfer payment or government transfer. So zakat can be used as a fiscal tool in the short run and also in the long run. Now let's see the role of zakat in the short run. Okay, now due to the increase in the unemployment, you see this COVID will lead to unemployment. Okay, people are being retrenched. Okay, what we call it, shops are being closed. So this will increase the level of unemployment. And because of the unemployment, the number of poor people will also increase. Now, here where the zakat should play, okay, their role in the short run, okay, especially during the crisis, to help the poor people. All right, because the poor people are among the recipient of zakah, right? Innama sadaqatu lil fuqara wal masakin. All right, so because of this, the zakat can be used, as the mechanism. Now in Indonesia we have Basnas and other Islamic NGO bodies. In Malaysia we have Pusat Pengunan Zakat, for example. This what we call organization can play, okay, their role in the short run, of course. Now in the long run, of course, zakat can also be used as an effective fiscal tool to redistribute income and wealth due to the market failure. You see, we know that of course, our economy is mostly capitalist. Capital is based on the market, but again, market failed. So there is a role of government in this case, okay, to complement, okay, the role of the market. Yeah. Now, of course, we have under the Islamic economic, okay, we have zakat. Yeah. Now, however, the effectiveness of zakat as a fiscal tool will depend on the perception of people about the Islamic commitment of government. I have actually my humble, what we call it, zakat theory effectiveness. You see, my PhD dissertation is on Islamic public finance. All right, studying Islamic classical book Kitabul Amwal of Abu Ubaid, which was written 1,200 years ago. Now, in that book, I found the information about the attitude of the Muslim people when paying zakat via government. You see, so basically, although we know that zakat is part of the Arkanul Islam, but zakat can also be part of the fiscal policy, part of the government public policy. You see, because it is mentioned khudh min amwalihim sadaqatan. So this command is basically to the government, okay, to collect zakat. But yeah, there is a phenomena here. Yeah, I think we should observe, okay, this phenomena. This is based on the report, yeah, of our past Muslim behavior. What is the phenomena? People tend to pay their zakat directly to the recipient and not, yeah, through the government when they perceive that their government is less Islamic. This is basically a fact. So people will not trust, okay, the government, okay, to distribute zakat. So only when people have a trust, and this trust is based on the Islamic trust, only then people will pay zakat to the government. Otherwise, okay, people will pay their zakat directly, okay, to the recipient, which will not be good, okay, for fiscal tool. So here, I derive my theory that there is a positive relationship actually between the effectiveness of zakat as a fiscal tool and the perception of the society on the Islamicity of the government. So zakat has a potential, okay, to become a fiscal tool, but we have to solve, okay, this problem. Yeah, the problem of the perception of the people about the Islamicity of the government. Thank you very much, Dr. Rafiki.
Thank you, Dr. Ruki, for the very insightful and very interesting point that we can upgrade our knowledge with your explanation. You mentioned that we have will have crisis, and also every countries had revised their projection of growth, and also we have will have increase in poverty, and also you have highlighted that we need to improvise the BMT or to extend the role of BMT. Then this is can help the SMEs that affected too much with the COVID-19. You also mentioned about the zakat as the special instrument for the fiscal, for the short and long term. This is very good explanation. And for the next agenda, we will ask the opinion or the suggestion from our prominent guests. Number one is Professor Humayun Dar, Director General, Cambridge Institute of Islamic Finance, United Kingdom. Maybe before we continue, Professor Humayun Dar, are you there? Assalamualaikum, Prof. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Humayun Dar. Okay, we also have...
Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
All right.
Prof?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Prof, we would like to hear your suggestion and comments regarding the Islamic finance and economics due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Please, Prof, the time is yours.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, a very good morning, if it happens to be morning wherever you are, or a good day to everyone. I have listened to the two speakers with keen interest, and I must be thankful to them for sharing their views on an issue which is affecting everyone. It is not an issue about Islamic finance only. Rather, this pandemic has affected everyone wherever they are. So I would like to, in a way, all these points have been covered by the distinguished panelists. I would like to summarize what they have said in probably 4 or 5 points. I think first thing we should keep in mind, and which should be comforting for those who are involved in Islamic finance, that it is not only Islamic finance which is being affected by the COVID-19. Rather, this is a very wide phenomenon which has affected business in general. So I think the common thing between Islamic finance and conventional finance in the current circumstances is that for both these strands of financial business, it's business unusual. Okay, it's not the case of business as usual. So both Islamic banks and conventional banks, they are being affected badly by this ongoing crisis. The encouraging thing for us, or some kind of optimistic scenario, is that both conventional banks and Islamic banks, they were in a lot better position when they were hit by this current crisis as compared to the global financial crisis. So the health of Islamic banks and conventional banks at that time wasn't as good as it was the case towards the end of 2019, when Islamic banks and of course conventional banks, they were doing quite well as well. Those Islamic banks which have some underlying health conditions, like individuals. I am here in UK, and the government officials, they keep on coming up with different figures. But one very clear message is that the people who have some underlying health conditions, they are more at risk vis-a-vis COVID-19. And this applies to the organizations as well. So those Islamic banks which have been facing some problems, financial problems or other problems, they would be more at risk during the crisis and of course afterwards as well. And I'll give one example. The NMC crisis in the Middle East, in Dubai, it has affected a number of banks. ADCB, which is a conventional bank, but of course it has the largest Islamic window. This has got the largest exposure to NMC, over $1 billion. So as a result of that, if this full exposure hits the bank, this is going to have an effect on Islamic banking as well. Dubai Islamic Bank, Dr. Ugi mentioned about the historical importance of DIB. So DIB has an exposure of 541 million USD.
Yeah.
And given the COVID-19 pandemic, on top of that, if the banks have this kind of issues, they are going to face very difficult times in the months to come. And of course, the reference to oil prices, this is a very timely reference as well. Especially the banks, Islamic banks included in Saudi Arabia, they would face huge crisis-like situations if the oil prices don't improve. Okay. We have the largest Islamic bank in the world in terms of capital and assets outside the Iran, a Raji Bank. Okay, that originates from the Saudi market, which is being affected by the oil prices directly. So this kind of institutions, I believe, they would face challenging times in the months to come. Encouraging thing is that, when you look at the forecasts, GDP forecasts for 2021, as of now, they are not that bad. All the multilateral institutions, they have come up with revised GDP growths for the countries, and of course global GDP as well, and for 2020. So everyone knows that 2020 is not going to be an easy year. However, if we have some kind of ease coming in, okay, then 2021 would be a lot better year for growth in general, and hopefully for financial sector, of which Islamic banking is a major part. So I would like to concur in a way with Professor Ahmed Kamil Maiden Mira, that yes, the financial sector, including Islamic banks, they would come out of it. My view is that the severity of this crisis is going to short-live. However, there would be pains afterwards, which we would feel for a very long time. The question for us is, of course, this crisis has hit everyone, but the question for us is it possible for Islamic banks and financial institutions to come out of this crisis quicker than conventional banks and financial institutions? And this is a question which would remain relevant for a few months to come. And once these the social distancing and these restrictions, they are eased, right, we would see what is the impact of this one. I cannot predict. I believe that there would be quite a number of Islamic banks and other Islamic financial institutions like microfinance. I cannot name any one of these, but I have received quite a number of calls from institutions around the world. Again, without naming anyone, there is a big microfinance institution. Because of the problems, they are facing survival issue, and this is not going to be the only one Islamic financial institution. There would be quite a number of them as well. When we look at the response, IDB has come up with a fund, okay, which is very small to my view. There is a need to come up with a bigger package, but IDB it's a smaller multilateral institution when we compare its size with other multilateral institutions. So it can do whatever it can do. However, I think this is imperative for the industry, Islamic banks and financial institutions, to come up with a program of assessment of their whole business model. I think this is the time for the Islamic banking industry to pause. We have been actually forced to pause. And this is an opportunity for us to give a thought to what we have been doing. Whatever we have done in the last 30, 40 years, is it something we should continue, or take this opportunity of halt of the economy to assess where we are and where we would like to go? I think if we come up with this reassessment of our value proposition, this would be a huge contribution to the future development of Islamic banking and finance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Homayandar, for your insightful explanation. I just highlight a few things that you mentioned, that we are now doing business unusual, and also we want to prove that whether Islamic banking or finance can recover quicker than other or conventional financial system. And also the last one you mentioned about the reassessment. This is the time and opportunity for us to do reassessment, to come out with new model that can sustain, and also we can achieve our objective as Islamic banking and finance. Thank you very much, Professor Humayundar. Thank you for your time and also your contribution. So we are now moved to the second guest, Mr. Blake God, yeah, CEO of Responsible Finance and Investment Foundation from United States. Mr. Blake, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Can you show us your video?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, actually, please give your comments and suggestion regarding this Islamic banking and finance related to the COVID-19. Please, Mr. Blake, the time is yours.
Okay. Well, I think that the idea of reassessing is important at this time, because there's so much that's changing and so much that is going to change over the next years. And I think we have to start, and this ties back into some of the presenters, thinking about what is the shock that we're facing, of the twin health and financial shock, and what that is going to do to the way that people do business, and the way that banks operate, and Islamic banks in particular. When we think about the financial shock, and what we've learned from the last crisis was that the reaction of banks to a major shock is often to retrench and try to remove their element of risk, and that's going to be challenging when it's happening to all the banks in more or less all the countries at the same time, when the need from people in response to the health shock is increasing. And I think what the impact of the change that we're seeing, and particularly for small businesses, and I think the focus on SMEs that's been discussed several times is really important, is that one of the things to reassess in this is some of the rigidities associated with debt, which has been a conversation for many years, but has always been a bit difficult to translate from theory into practice in terms of the risk sharing and the equity approach. But I think with this shock that we're facing, and the fact that small businesses will be facing that at the same time, and central banks and banks will have to really deal with the impact, particularly in the context of banks looking to reduce their risk. When there's a period of the immediate crisis where a pause is beneficial in terms of not of extending terms of financing. I think that it's something that Islamic finance should naturally grasp upon, is an idea of giving extra time when people are facing hardship. But it's something that's gonna eventually have to end, and there'll have to be some reassessment. And the typical process for bank financing, whether it's conventional or Islamic, when there's this reassessment, is that through process, however formalized they may be, it tends to translate the debt claim of a bank into some form of equity in the future, as things are being restructured. And I think when you see that across as large a scale as we're likely to see, that's going to create some questions about what is the bridge between the risk appetite of the banks going forward and the debt appetite of individuals. And I think that's an area where Islamic finance has to do some reassessment of its own, but also can take that as an opportunity. And I really liked the comment about the community banks and the BMTs in terms of the filling some of that gap. Because when you think about the banks pulling back at the same time that people are and businesses are in need, there's going to have to be some level of community response, community-led response, and that's initially comes on maybe more on a bilateral basis, but it eventually becomes more formalized, and that's where examples from history and present day that we know of community banks and PMTs can help provide some model for how that gets formalized. And I think that coupled with the reassessment of how do we manage that relationship of those with seeking finance and those who need it is really where there's been a lot more thought about these issues from the Islamic finance perspective than there has been on the conventional side. And I think if you look in more big picture terms and compare the response and some of the preparations and the responses in the immediate aftermath of the virus from the financial sector, a lot of it has been based on just the hard realities of return, and that hasn't been particularly successful. And I think the best example of that is the pandemic bond that still hasn't been triggered in terms of its payout to support the response to COVID-19. And it calls for that reassessment to more than just those financial returns, which is something I think that Islamic finance and more broadly ethical and responsible finance has been thinking and pushing on for a number of years. And it's not going to be easy to immediately jump and fill that gap, because Islamic banks are feeling just the same level of immediate shock from the economic consequences of the COVID-19 and the lockdown. But this is an opportunity, and it's one that's important to take. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Blake, thank you very much for your view. I think you agree with other speakers on BMT and also on certain aspect that we need to enhance. Thank you very much, Mr. Blake. We also have another guest that will give comments and suggestion. Dr. Nail Muhammad from Ghana. Dr. Nail, are you there? Assalamualaikum, Dr. Nail.
Yes, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, we see your picture now, your video. Okay, we have question for you, Dr. Nail, regarding the impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance and economics. Maybe you have your own views, opinions that may be similar or different than the others speaker. This is your time, Dr. Nail, please.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Rafiki. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for this particular opportunity. All right, and I think it's a very good opportunity to be here with our scholars to hear them. Even though I was just supposed to leave shortly for Salatul Subuh because it's now 5:30 a.m. here. Yes, but I think it's a very wonderful session, and so far there are so much that we have learned from our scholars, particularly also from Prof. Ugi and also Prof. Kamil and other professors who just shared their views. I think what I will have to add may not be significantly different from what they have said earlier, but there's some small take I think wanted to also share my view on. With the current COVID-19, right? I'm very happy that Prof. Humayun Dar actually has mentioned something which is very interesting, that we are doing business unusual. But one thing we should remember, we shouldn't forget, is that at any time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a challenge, in any case, in anything, is just for us to reflect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned it in several parts in the Quran. All right. If you look at the examples of people who came before us, most of them were challenged. And when they were challenged, Allah has mentioned in the Quran, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they will come back to us. So looking at the analysis of what we should be doing perhaps now, so that post-COVID-19, Islamic finance or Islamic banking generally, or the finance in particular, will be able to come out of it as compared to as faster than the counterparts of the conventional financing or conventional banking. That is something that I believe we have to be looking at now. And like Prof has mentioned, we should be analyzing our business model. And I will add on that is not only our business model that we have to add. Management or Islamic management forms the basis of any Islamic institution or any Islamic related institution. We should assess our own selves in terms of how we do our work. Are we really sincere, right? Are we really sincere in practicing Islamic finance, or are we there practicing Islamic finance just for the gains of it? How are we going to look at the social benefits, all right, as in terms of getting the falah or getting the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is among the things I believe we have to examine, all right? Not only the principles and the systems of Islamic finance, but also examine the behavioral aspect. In other words, I'm talking about the behavioral finance, or I should say the Islamic behavioral finance, all right? How are we marketing our products? How are we creating the products? Are we more towards satisfying our government or satisfying just the people, or as professionals, are we really coming up with something for the sake of Allah? With this COVID-19, the challenge that poses to everybody is just for us to reflect. And Allah has mentioned it in the Quran, right? With the people of Shu'aib, with the people of Ad, Thamud, and Nuh, just mentioned, right? We don't have enough time. I cannot go into them. But one message which is very common is that people have been challenged. And so far, I think in people of this generation, this must be or should be one of the greatest that they have seen with this COVID-19, and it has brought a lot of fears. People don't even know what will happen tomorrow. Others, people projecting the what if this virus should stay for the next, until the end of the year. We don't pray so. But what if it should be there? What would be the prospects of Islamic finance? What would be the prospect of behavioral finance? These are things that I believe we should be examining. Our organizations, business model, and not only that, but ourselves, our attitudes, our behavior in facing or in dealing with ourselves and in dealing with the situation. It's just for us to reflect. So in a way, I will say that the COVID-19 is a wake-up call, right? It's a wake-up call for both macro and micro levels. But there is also a message Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reminded us in the Quran again. Allah says, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Inna ma'al usri yusra. Verily, for every difficulty or every difficult situation, inshallah, there's going to be an ease. And the scholars will tell you, when Allah made the usr as one, He has made the yusr as plenty. So for every one difficulty, you're going to have ease in a very vast way. And then we pray so that, inshallah, we're going to see the end of this pandemic very soon. But definitely, it has left us with some lessons. It has left us with great lessons. And Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ نَادَانَا نُوحٌ فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. Allah says with the people of Nuh, He says, Nuh, Prophet Nuh, or Nabi Nuh, has called upon us. And Allah used the word fa, which is to say we have instantly accepted him, and then we saved him and his people. This is the time for prayers. So we have to pray, make a lot of dua to Allah, make a lot of istighfar. As professionals, as we are coming up with all these Islamic finance and thinking, praying so that we will go out of this pandemic very soon. It's going to be easy, but again, we have to reflect. And when the time comes, post-COVID-19, what are we supposed to do? From now on, we have to start examining our systems, examining our products. Perhaps there are things that we have done which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to give us a wake-up call that we should change our ways of doing things. So things that we have done which are not right, we can find ways to fix ourselves. What we did or we have done, which is very good, because many of our scholars have advised us, like Prof. Kamil particularly has given us an advice. What are some of the investments that we have to take? We have to look into the health sector, investment in the health sector and others. And Prof. Ugi also spoke about the zakat, all right? And one thing I like, a particular statement from him, perception of the public on the Islamicity of their government will affect the payment of zakat. So this is also a wake-up call for the government, how they influence the trusts among their people, all right, and the way forward. So in a nutshell, I think we thank very much the organizers, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and
Thank you.
Incorporate whatever you have done in your mizan hasanat, and may Allah increase us in knowledge. Jazakumullah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nail Muhammad, for your views. This is very interesting views, and we hope can take the lesson from what you say just now. We must reflect ourselves, our institution, and our country, and this has become our wake-up call to be better. And inshallah, we will achieve our al-falah, as you mentioned just now. Thank you very much, Dr. Nail Muhammad, for your contribution. Okay, now we will continue for the question and answer from the participants. We have chosen some of the question, and this question directed to the speakers, Professor Kamil and also Dr. Ugi. There is question from Michael Darari. I think for the participant, you may switch on your video or activate your video, then we can see your face. This is a question from Michael Darari. Mr. Michael Darari, are you there? Assalamualaikum. Mr. Darari. Okay, if still not...
Dr. Rafiki, the question.
Okay, we will go to the next questions. This is from Diah Rahayu. This is for both speakers. Madam Diah Rahayu, are you there? Can you show your face? Assalamualaikum. Madam Diah Rahayu.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, your question, I will read your question and then the speaker will answer your question. Dr. Ugi and Professor Kamil, her question is, what is the opportunities within the Islamic space at times of crisis, especially for long-term investment? What is the opportunities within the Islamic space at times of crisis, especially for long-term investment? maybe from Prof. Kamil first. You can give your answer.
It's your voice is a bit echoing there.
Okay.
Yeah, it is echoing. It is echoing.
Okay. I will read again. Uh, Madam Dia Rahayu asks both of you, what is the opportunities within the Islamic space at times of crisis, especially for long-term investment?
What's the space and time? What is that?
I think it is related how the Islamic finance, cope with the crisis, especially for the long-term investment.
Okay.
What is the solution? Something like that, Prof.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much to Sister Dia Rahayu. Well, first we need to know how long-term investments will be affected first, yeah? Isn't it, yeah? How it will be affected by the crisis. Take example,
Okay, yes.
Yeah, take for example, when we invest in long-term financing in Malaysia, when we put, what do you call that, let's say for building of MRT and so on, yeah? It's going to be a long-term. So the thing is, the financing part of it, well, it all depends how much the government wants to come for long-term investments. If it is a government public financing, one thing that I would like to highlight, to be frank with you, exactly what she is having in my mind, I'm not very sure. What actually she is having in her mind. But I can give you, related in relation to how Indonesia and others are solving. For example, in order to solve these long-term effects of this financing, like let's say you are issuing bonds, for example, 50-year bonds. So if you are issuing a 50-year bond to solve this crisis, like in Indonesia and let's say Qatar, Europe, not Euro bonds by Qatar, you have to understand that it has implications for the people. What is the implication for the people is that if you borrow funds, especially from outside the country, external debt to solve this crisis. So if you borrow externally and then you have to pay interest on it, so what will happen is that in the future, the people will have to pay back, the country will have to pay back the loans plus the principal, right? So what will happen is that you will have to tax the people, for example, higher taxes, or in Malaysia we have GST, Indonesia also have GST, you may have to increase the GSTs and so on. So the people will have to pay back the loans taken to solve this problem. So the future generation, those who will come, our children 50 years from today, they will have to pay for what we are going through today. See? So you have to understand when you want to finance long-term financing, whatever these things, long-term like this, make sure you don't burden the future generation like this. Yeah. So what we should do, if you ask me, in Malaysia or even Indonesia, never take external debt to solve this problem. Never. Why never? Because the moment you take external debt, initially it may even be inflationary. But whether it will be inflationary, we are not very sure. Yeah, because initially it will come and fill up the gap for the liquidity gap first. So then only it will be inflationary. But the people will have to pay back later. So why can't we, the government, which has a right to create the currency of the country, you can actually, solve it using, let's say, quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is basically printing new money, whether physical money or electronically, creating money electronically. You create, just like America and many other countries, they use quantitative easing to solve it, So we may have to use quantitative easing, even though it may or may not be inflationary, as I just explained just now, yeah? But at least with quantitative easing, if you finance your long-term obligations like this for quantitative easing, the people do not pay back using, through taxation and so on. So I think that, long-term investments like big projects, the country should go on, but please never borrow from IMF, don't borrow from World Bank. you will just put the burden on the future generation. We can solve this problem on our own. Every government must remember they have the right to create the currency of the country. We have the right. But in the present system, most of the currency is created by the commercial banks through the fractional reserve banking. Why we let the power to the commercial banks and then you go to the international and borrow money, right? So I think this is, I'm not sure whether I answered the sister's question correctly, but I guess this is what perhaps he was having in mind. Thank you.
Okay, Professor. Maybe I just ask Dr. Ugi for the next question. There is a participant.
I think I would answer also this type of question, Dr. Rafiki, if you give me an opportunity. I have a certain view on this.
Maybe you have 3 minutes, Dr. Ugi, to give your views.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. No, she is asking about the long-term, what is the best opportunity of long-term investment in these situations. You see, this is the problem with us. When we say investment, sometimes in our mind, of course, there are two types, okay, debt, what we call it, type of investment, and equity type of investment. Of course, in conventional economy and conventional finance, we don't really differentiate between debt investment and equity investment. We simply say investment. And now, you see, we are facing, okay, this debt crisis. You see, issuing bond or borrowing from IMF, this conventional so-called borrowing or investment are basically debt. And it is of course, with interest. Now, I think this is the opportunity, okay, to think about the meaning of investment and what's the debt issue. Okay, so we have actually crisis. You see, recently some of the European countries, okay, like Spain, Portugal, okay, Greece, okay, was experiencing the debt crisis. And this COVID-19 will also lead, okay, to the debt crisis. And our economy is basically the debt economy. This is basically the problem. And the most dramatic part is the most advanced countries, the most indebted countries in the world. You see? So this is the model of our economy today. Should we follow, okay, this kind of model, or should we rethink, okay, the other model? Now, of course, from the Islamic finance and economy point of view, we should really emphasize on the equity, okay, on the equity investment, okay, rather than debt investment. Okay, so in the equity you share. Okay, if you have a profit, you share the profit. If you have a loss, you share the loss. We share the loss together. Yeah, so this is basically probably the lesson that we can learn. Now, government is issuing bond. Why not we resort, okay, for example, to sukuk? But of course, again, our sukuk is replicating, okay, the so-called conventional bond. Our sukuk should be more on the equity base, okay, in the future, of course. Yeah. So instead of issuing government sukuk, government bond, why not government sukuk? But of course, the sukuk must be based on the equity. It's not really what I call it, like simply playing around. Okay, so we must be serious. In fact, the Islamic what I call it financial instrument suggested by the Muslim economists should be reconsidered. Yeah, that the equity-based financing should be considered in the future. We should little by little keep a distance, okay, from the debt, what I call it, the debt instruments. Yeah, of course, the debt instrument should be kept there, but it should be kept minimum, not the main. So this is actually my answer, okay, to this type of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ugi, for your views. Now we move to the next question from Michael Darari. His question is, after the outbreak, how Islamic finance will compete with the conventional banking? As we can understand, post can be deemed as a restart for the economy. So maybe Dr. Ugi can answer this first. Then Prof. Kamil will add up more answer.
All right.
Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rafiki. Yeah, I think now the issue is competition is, I think we should think again twice. Do we really should compete, okay, with the conventional bank or conventional finance? In my humble opinion, we should not. Yeah, we should not. Yeah, what we should do is, let's start, okay, with the solving the Muslim Ummah problem. We should solve our Muslim first. Don't try, okay, to compete with the conventional. We are still very small. You see, even our Islamic finance in the world, and not probably only 1% of the market share. We cannot compete, okay, with them. So our strategy is we should start from ourselves. We should start solving our own problem, our own Muslim problem. We should start from there. And I'm sure that the Islamic product is a universal. If we can get benefit to Muslim, we can get benefit. We can give benefit to the rest of the humanity. So I think our attitude must start from there, not by competition, okay, with them. So this is my short answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, Prof. Kamil, maybe you have some views on this question.
Yes, I thank you, Brother Dr. Rafiqi. I actually share the view with Dr. Udi, but additionally, what I would like to say is, dealing with SMEs in this country, I find that, SMEs, they want actually a risk-sharing principle of financing. That's why there is, recently, there's interest in Malaysia to move away and create a banking system that does not come under the even central bank. Why? Because the central banking model doesn't want to share the risk. All the banks that come under the central banks, they don't want to share risk. So SMEs are looking for, they're looking for true Islamic financing, where the banks are, or financial institutions are willing to share in the riskiness of business. And then the second thing is, a lot of small traders will be popping up in the future. So Islamic finance can look into this kind of small financing of the small traders, and also perhaps looking at the previous answer to the earlier question, the banking sector look into areas that will grow after the post-crisis. For example, agriculture. You see, Indonesia is good. You are in a way self-sufficient in food, but Malaysia is not. So in Malaysia, there's a lot of opportunity for agriculture. So the banking system must go into this kind of sectors and finance this kind of sector. Basically, the solving our problem. Like Dr. Uji was telling, you don't have to actually compete. You see where the opportunities are, what the business community want, we provide that. So the health industry is a good opportunity, agriculture is a good opportunity, IT-based businesses and all the startups are good opportunities. Even e-education is becoming popular, e-education. And so these are the things I think we can, look into. The Islamic finance and look into this, quote unquote, as though you're competing, but you're not competing, but you're focusing on real important areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Kamil. I think we have another last question from our participant, very short one, and I hope you also can answer in very short answer. I think from Malaysia, the question is, do you see central bank now being the lender of the last resort for Islamic finance institutions? Please, Prof. Kamil.
Well, the central bank is always stands as the lender of last resort. But in Malaysian case, the capital buffers are there, so therefore I don't think it will be needed. Yeah, but the central bank will always do that as a lender of last resort, but it will not be necessary in Malaysian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Kamil. So maybe the last one, Dr. Ugi, can you give your opinion on these questions?
Yeah, the issue of the so-called last resort is, well, it is less relevant now, because even the bank itself is now not borrowing. Okay, the bank is already playing in the capital market. Okay, bank is not now not really borrow from the central bank, although it will borrow from the central bank, but the bank can already play. Even the country now go last resort to the IMF. So the central bank is not the last resort. Yeah, the IMF will be the last resort, or the World Bank will be the last resort. So this is my comment. Sorry to say.
Okay, thank you very much, our speakers. And since our time is very limited, and I hope all of you, all participants, can get some information, knowledge, and updates on the impact of COVID-19 to Islamic economics and finance. I know there are many things to be discussed and to be explained, but again, we have to end our meeting, our discussion. Even now, we a little bit late, half an hour. For your information, speakers, we have 150 participants that participate in this discussion. Alhamdulillah. And thank you again for your views, your opinions, for the speakers, Professor Dato Dr. Ahmad Kamil Mira and Dr. Ugi Suharto and Professor Humayun Dar and Mr. Blake God and Dr. Nail Muhammad for your insightful, very interesting view. And thank you very much for your contribution. And on behalf of National Committee for Islamic Economic and Finance, KNEKS, and the Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists and Medan Area University, we would like to thank for your participation and attention. Hope we can see you in the next series. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For the speaker.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank
If
you.
you don't mind, all the speakers and discussion, please turn on your video. We will take the photo as for our record that this seminar has been done, alhamdulillah, smoothly.
Okay, please, Dr. Ugi and Prof. Kamil and also Professor Humayun Dar and Mr. Blake God and Dr. Nail Muhammad, can you please activate your video, then we can take a picture for documentation.
Yeah, can you see me? I'm there, right?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the host will can see all the pictures.
Okay, good. Okay. So the host can take the picture, yes.
Yeah, Atika, you can take the picture now.
We cannot sit together because the system is not. Yeah. Is it okay now?
Done?
Is it okay?
Okay. Is it okay?
Is it done?
Done? All right. Okay. Thank you very much. See you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much.
See you next time. Jazakallah khair. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Ustaz Uki.
And others. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Maybe the participant also can say something to Dr. Ugi. Say thank you.
We'd like to also thank, Dr. Humayun Dar and also Dr. Nail for their constructive comments given, and also Mr.
Thank you all. Thank you all, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. We keep learning from you. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Sultan thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Emir and Dr. Rafiki. See you, inshallah.
Thank you. See you, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum. Fi amanillah to everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Apa tuh? Kita ikut ini. Iya. Dari mana tadi Bang? Ada Bang foto apa tadi? Jadi sakti.